It's Tuesday, January 5th, 2021, and welcome to the reading of the Record Courier. My name is Pam, and we will begin with the area deaths. Joyce E. Hull, 81 years of age, passed away Friday, January 1st at her residence. Funeral services have taken place. Anna B. Griega, 90 years of age, passed away Thursday, December 31st. Visitation will be Wednesday, January 6th, at the Green Family Funeral Home and Crematory Service in Manawa from 10 to 11 a.m., where Mass of Christian burial will take place at the funeral home at 11 a.m. Mary McQuain, 73, of Newton Falls, passed away Monday, December 28th, at Trumbull Regional Medical Center in Warren. At this time, there will be no calling hours or services. Cremation has taken place. A celebration of her life will be held at a later date. George Chepke, 88, went home to be with his Jesus on December 31st. He passed away peacefully in his home. Family and friends may call from 4 to 6 p.m. Wednesday, January 6th at the Lane Funeral Home, Austin Town Chapel. Funeral services will be held at 10 a.m. Thursday, January 7th, at the Ravenna Assembly of God Church. Wayne Carmine Lackner passed away at his home in Kent, Ohio on December 26th. Please visit www.heritagecremationsociety.com for full obituary information. James Gilbert Edwards Sr., known as Jim, of Rootstown, went home to be with his Savior on December 30th. Family and friends will be received on Thursday, January 7th, from 5 p.m. until 7 p.m. at the Wood Cotright Borkowski Funeral Home in Ravenna. A memorial service will be held at 6 p.m. on Friday, January 8th, at Mission Baptist Temple in Stowe. Gregory Joseph Schultz, age 74, passed away January 2nd. Greg's wishes were to be cremated. The family will celebrate his life privately at this time. Mrs. Beverly Joyce Baird Klein, age 86, of Canton, died January 1st after a long illness. Funeral services will be held at 1 p.m. on Tuesday in the Carlo Libby Funeral Home. Friends may call from 12 to 1 Tuesday at the funeral home. Masks are required, social distancing will be practiced, and gathering limits will be enforced. Well, that concludes the area deaths for today. And here's our first article. Portage County hits 100 COVID-19 deaths by Max Bilby. Portage County has hit a grim milestone of 100 COVID-19 deaths. The county has now seen 7,620 positive cases, 407 hospitalizations as of Monday, according to the Ohio Department of Health. The state added another 5,942 coronavirus cases on Monday, following what proved to be the darkest month of the pandemic so far. Monday's cases bring the statewide total to 727,423. The latest cases were less than 3 weeks' average of 7,468 new cases reported per day. Ohio's 7-day positive COVID-19 test rate rose to 15% on Saturday, the most recent date for which data is available. More than 7.85 million COVID-19 tests have been administered across the state since the pandemic began in March. Another 67 COVID-19 deaths were reported statewide on Monday, which is less than the 3-week average of 76 new virus deaths a day. So far, COVID-19 has killed 9,143 Ohioans, according to the state. And now, a Portage court created to help people with mental illness is certified. The Portage County Municipal Court's Successful Treatment and Recovery, known as STAR, court docket has received final certification from the Ohio Supreme Court's Commission on Specialized Dockets. The court was created to assist people with mental illness who come into frequent contact with the adult criminal justice system. The program is designed to divert those with mental health issues away from jail, to prevent homelessness, and to coordinate mental health treatment. To receive the certification, a press release from the court said the local court must submit an application, undergo a site visit, and provide specific program materials. Ohio Supreme Court Chief Justice Maureen O'Connor congratulated the court and Portage County Judge Kevin T. Poland for receiving final certification. Specialized dockets are courts dedicated to specific types of offenses or offenders. They use a combination of different techniques to hold offenders accountable while also addressing the underlying causes of their behavior. More than 210 specialized dockets in Ohio courts deal with issues such as drugs, domestic violence, and human trafficking. The specialized docket certification requirements include establishing eligibility requirements, evaluating effectiveness of the program, and assembling a team treatment for daily operations. Those standards provide a minimum level of uniform practices for specialized dockets throughout Ohio and allow local courts to tailor programs to meet their community's needs. I am extremely proud of earning the certification of Star Court Docket, Poland said. I would like to thank the treatment team and our partners in providing this crucial service to our mental health participants, especially Teresa Spiker and her staff at the Adult Probation Department and the caseworkers at Coleman Professional Services. Ravenna Development Chief prepares for exciting second year by Diane Smith. Dennis West stood in a crumbling Ravenna factory building discussing plans to tear the building down. The demolition of the former Oak Rubber plant, which also has housed a flea market and more recently inhabited by homeless people and vandals, is one of the West's goals for his second year in office as Economic Development Director for both Ravenna and Ravenna Township. West, who joined the city and township as Economic Development Director in December 2019, is preparing for his second year in office. His salary is paid by a joint partnership of the city, township, and core team, all of whom must formally agree to renew his contract. City officials gave West glowing reviews at a recent council meeting. Councilman Tim Calfee noted that when West took office, council members said they would evaluate his progress after the first year. I think the evaluation should be that it's really been a good investment, he said. Mayor Frank Seaman said West has been dogged about pursuing the demolition of the old factory and believes it would not be moving forward if not for West. He was the right man for the job, Seaman said. A factory in ruins. West said the former factory at 645 South Chestnut Street consists of 3 buildings, including apartments, a garage, and the factory itself, totaling 125,000 square feet. Parts of the building date to the late 1800s, but most of the construction took place in the 20th century. Oak Rubber was the most well-known manufacturer in the building, but it was used for other manufacturing as well. The building's most recent productive use was as a flea market, which occupied 3 stories of the building. When the flea market owner died, numerous items, including old books and televisions, were left behind for vandals to smash and burn. I've chased people out of here high as a kite, West said. Some used abandoned mattresses from the apartments to sleep on, some started fires to keep warm, and others helped themselves to wire and scrap metal, even overturning a transformer on the property. A vehicle also smashed into a fence set up to secure the site and keep vandals out. Contractor Jim Wallace was hired to begin the demolition, which Wallace expects to start towards the end of January. The process, he said, will take most of the year because Wallace plans to recycle the building materials, including the brick. Trendy remodelers, he says, like to use the old bricks for flooring and wall decor, an idea he said is popular in the South. Even after the site is cleared, West predicts that the property will sit vacant for a long time. That's because when the most recent owner died, he owed $88,000 in back taxes. The county, he said, will have to foreclose on the property in order to clear the tax bill. A tumultuous first year. Before West started working with Ravenna, he was a manager of business services for the Greater Akron Chamber for 7 years. The Ravenna position was created after the core team, a public and private partnership, approached Ravenna City Council and Ravenna Township trustees about a joint partnership to hire an economic development director for the city and township. The core team agreed to pay $38,000 towards his salary. The city contributed $50,000 and the township paid $15,000. The city also provided an office for West. Because he is an independent contractor, there are no benefits to go with the salary. The position had been vacant for more than 5 years when West joined last year. In addition to the demolition of the Chestnut Street factory, West said he spent much of the 2020 working on key projects, such as the rail spur at the Chestnut Commerce Center and facilitating the redevelopment of a Route 88 property as a distribution center for Menards. Construction on the Menards project is expected to begin in the third quarter of the new year, West said. In addition, he plans to work on business retention and new business in the downtown and elsewhere. He hopes to renew work on a joint economic development district with the township and has spoken with a group of interested property owners around Route 14 and Route 44. We're hoping for 2021 to be just as exciting as 2020 was, he said. After surviving cancer, a COVID-19 shutdown crash leaves a longtime Mogadore barber paralyzed. By Eric Murata. Since the 1980s, men from around Mogadore went to Denzel Booth at Gene's barbershop for haircuts. Then he was diagnosed with cancer and had to close his shop by the railroad tracks in February for surgery to remove his bladder. He had just turned 75, but returned to work after recovering and weeks of COVID lockdown, making appointments with his old school flip phone, even though coronavirus restrictions cut business 75%. His family says the business survived. Then a driver struck him as he crossed North Cleveland Avenue after work on Monday, the first day of winter and the darkest day of the year. Following emergency surgery to fuse 4 vertebrae in his neck, his family said Booth is unable to move or feel anything below his shoulders. His shop, where men would sit and socialize for hours, is now closed for good. Police are still investigating the accident as of Wednesday. Police Chief Todd Higgins said Booth was struck at 5:40 p.m. by a 57-year-old village resident who had just passed over the railroad tracks heading south. It was dark and raining, he said. No charges have been filed. Higgins said some members of his department and many local men were patrons, especially if you grew up in town, he said. He cut my hair for a long time. Booth's wife Diane and his stepdaughter Jennifer Clark went out to the shop Wednesday to pick up some items and make sure it was secure. He was a one-man shop, said Clark. He was still working. He was out there 5 days a week. After being diagnosed with cancer near the end of 2019, Booth began 4-day work weeks. He would schedule his chemotherapy on Wednesday. He would go in and do his chemotherapy on his day off and then go back into the shop and work on Thursday, Clark said. After having his bladder removed in February, he was declared cancer-free, but the shop was shut down by COVID-19, and Booth struggled to reopen when restrictions were lifted in the summer. He doesn't use computers. He doesn't have email. He has a flip phone, so having to schedule these appointments was all new to him, Clark said. He was just a walk-in barber shop. People would just come in and hang out for a long time. After reopening, he put his phone number in the window and people would call and make appointments. That's how he operated, but it probably cut his business to around 1/4 of what it was, Clark said. Booth earned his barber license in 1964 and purchased the shop from the former owner back in the mid-1980s. Before becoming a full-time barber, Booth had worked as a car salesman. He loves people and he loves to talk, so it was a good transition for him, Clark said. She said part of Wednesday's trip to the shop involved answering messages on Booth's phone. She said many, including one who just called to leave a message, had not heard of the crash. He said I was just calling to tell Denny what a special person he was and to thank him. Clark said he had no idea. He was just calling to tell Denny that he was one of his favorite people in the whole world. Clark said Booth's doctors have not made a prediction about his prognosis. His neurosurgeon said there's always hope. It could be permanent, but there's always hope. The family has set up a GoFundMe account titled Denny's Battle. As of Wednesday afternoon, donors have contributed $2,600 towards its $20,000 goal. Denny and his wife Diane could use an extensive amount of prayer and financial assistance to help with healing and bills, the campaign states. Good luck, Denny. And now, Streetsboro Route 14 widening project to begin in the spring by Caitlin McGarvey. The long-anticipated Route 14 widening project is expected to begin in 2021. Though the project is scheduled to kick off in the spring, Streetsboro Mayor Glenn Broska said a start date is not yet known. It will largely depend on when the contractor can get to work, meaning weather will also play a factor. Broska says he doesn't think the start time will be later than April. In order to reduce accidents and help traffic move smoothly, Route 14 will be widened between Portage Point Drive by the former Kmart to Diagonal Road. The project will add a third lane, curbs, and gutters. Sidewalks also will be added to the north side of the road for the entire length of the project. It will look almost like a boulevard when it's completed, Broska said. Putting a third lane down State Route 14 will virtually eliminate the traffic accidents that we have along that corridor, he said. That's one of the most dangerous corridors because people want to turn left into the driveways and they're getting hit from behind by other vehicles. Earlier this week, Streetsboro City Council approved final legislation for the project, a $982,154.20 appropriation for it. That amount is slightly more than what was initially anticipated. The widening project was anticipated to cost about $6.5 million. ODOT's safety program was to provide $3.1 million, and the Akron Metropolitan Area Transportation Study, or AMATS, would pay $2,065,000. The city would pay the remaining $750,000. Despite the increase, the city of Streetsboro is still only paying 10% of the project's total cost. The remaining 90% will be paid for by ODOT and AMATS. Broska said their contribution to the project likely also increased. However, but he was unsure by how much. Broska said the city was not surprised to find out the cost changed slightly. The initial quote for the project was given about 4 years ago. Since then, the cost for materials and labor have risen. The project will be sent out for bid soon, which will help determine a definitive price, Broska said. The Route 43 improvement project, like the Route 14 project, is being performed by the city of Streetsboro in conjunction with ODOT. The project will increase safety along the roughly 1 mile portion of the road, creating a two-way left turn lane starting from Evergreen Drive and extending to Frost Road. Obtaining right-of-way is the next step in solidifying plans for that project, Broska said. Council also authorized the mayor to enter into an agreement with Bowman Appraisal Services, Inc. on Monday. The company will provide appraisal and review services associated with the right-of-way acquisition for the State Route 43 corridor project. O.R. Cole and Associates will also provide consulting and engineering services associated with the acquisition. The Route 43 improvement project is scheduled to take place in 2022. A Ravenna parish is looking to give new life to an old school by Diane Smith. For more than 50 years, Immaculate Conception's parish school educated thousands of children from Ravenna and beyond. Now, members of the parish have enthusiastically responded to a capital campaign to find a new use for the school building at the corner of South Sycamore Street and West Spruce Avenue, which has been vacant since the school closed in 2004. The school building, which was built in 1950, will become a parish education center, housing the church's religious education classes, choir practices, and other ministries of the church, including a dedicated space for the Knights of Columbus. Chuck Calacina, church business manager, and the Reverend William Cranack, parish priest, said more than $200,000 has been raised in the 3 weeks since the campaign was started, nearly meeting the $250,000 goal in less than a month. The project will include new windows, a new boiler, plumbing and walkway repairs, new carpeting, painting and cleaning, and will eliminate mortgage payments on the building. Cranack said church members care about the church and wants to ensure that all of its buildings are well maintained. They want this parish to be alive and an exciting place to be, he said. They continue to support it financially. Everyone loves the city of Ravenna and they love this church, and they want it to be alive and well maintained. In addition to Cranack and Calacina, members of the campaign committee include Deacon Eric Ruhr, seminarian Brooke Benedict, honorary chairman and businessman Neil Mann Jr., Ann Moneypenny, Andy Drajevnik, Roger Savacco, Paul Derbick Jr., Michael Marosi, who is the county engineer, Kathy Collins, and Kevin Poland, a judge in the county's municipal court. Many of these committee members, Calacina said, either attend the school as children or sent their children there. Parishioners tell similar stories when making donations, he said. Cranack said he was surprised to see how enthusiastically the parish responded to the campaign in the midst of the COVID-19 pandemic. It's just amazing to me, he said. The first parochial school of the parish was built in 1878 on the property next to the existing building, and a second school was built in 1909. An addition was built in the 1950s. In 2004, the school graduated its final class of 6 students and closed, and the newer portion was rededicated as an education center. The older portion of the building was torn down and turned into additional parking. Since then, the building has been unused except to house religious education classes, which will continue, but the renovation will allow other ministries to use the space. Sister Yvonne Horning, pastoral minister at the church, once was a teacher at the school. Now she will oversee operations at the parish center. The renovation is expected to be completed by summer. Other projects planned for the future include upgrades to make the building wheelchair accessible. Similar improvements are planned at the social hall on Spruce Street, where restrooms are not wheelchair accessible. If you'd like to donate, contact the church at 330-296-6434. Shalersville Business, Living on the Live Edge Boom by Bob Gagins. A coffee table, a mantel, a bar, a conference table for the boardroom of a large company. Customers will all see something different when they gaze upon Redgate's Sawmill's collection of live edge slabs of wood. But every piece or decoration started as a tree, probably somewhere in Portage County. It's just the style right now, said Cassius Harris, who runs the sawmill with his father, Roy Harris. Sometimes it can be rustic looking with metal legs that are real modern looking. Redgate Sawmill, located at 8767 Route 44 in Shalersville, doesn't create furniture. It simply mills the wood that eventually becomes the furniture, tabletop, or counter of the buyer's imagination. In live edge style, the natural edge of the wood or bark is kept and incorporated into the design. Over the past 5 years, slabs of wood geared towards live edge furniture have become increasingly popular, to the point that Roy said the slabs are all that the sawmill produces. Roy remembers a large butternut tree that came in from a tree company. He said a regular browser at the sawmill quickly made an offer on the log. But Roy said he wanted to think about it. I did some research to see what was going on with this, he said. That log they were trying to buy for me for a couple of $1,000s was probably worth about $20,000 sawed and dried. We actually sat on that log for over a year before we sawed it. He said he had to go out and buy a bigger saw to cut the log, which was 50 inches in diameter and 10 feet long. The boom in live edge furniture has Roy considering an expansion, bringing on an additional employee and buying a second kiln, which he noted is no small commitment. The first one costs $50,000. Once we bought that kiln, that made all the difference, and that was a leap of faith buying that, he said. The kiln is used to dry wood, which helps guard against warping, splitting, and twisting. If you saw that piece of wood and sell it green, they're not going to have a good time with it, Roy said. The majority of the slabs for sale at the Redgate Sawmill are walnut, which usually has an interesting grain, according to Cassius. The sawmill also has slabs of other common trees in the area, but Roy said 75% of the wood they cut is walnut. Most of the sawmill's customers are one-time customers, but some come back when they see another need for a live edge piece of furniture. They usually buy the wood and make the furniture on their own. There are some regulars who create furniture to buy, but most are do-it-yourselfers wanting to create their own furniture. One of the most interesting uses Roy said he's seen for his wood is live edge river tables, which involve inserting a river of epoxy or some other type of filler in the middle of the slab. Roy has been running the sawmill for about 20 years, but only as a hobby for the first 7 or 8 years. At that point, he was blinded in an accident, which he said ended his house building career. Cassius started helping when he was in college and just never left. I asked him if he wanted to try it, and he said he'd give it a try, said Roy. He said he'd give it a year, and so I bought the kiln, and we've been going strong ever since. Well, up next, a Ravenna man, Portage coach, charged with attempting sexual relationships with a 14-year-old. A Ravenna man who has coached at several Portage County schools has been arrested for allegedly attempting to engage in sexual relationships with a 14-year-old over social media. Tyler J. Koya, 27, of Summit Road in Ravenna, was charged with importuning, a third-degree felony. According to court records, Koya attempted to form a sexual relationship with a juvenile in Snapchat. It's unclear from court records whether the victim was male or female. He has coached at Ravenna and Crestwood school districts and most recently coached track for James A. Garfield. School records show he was hired in January 2019 to coach middle school boys track. Bond was set at $25,000 cash on the condition he does not use social media. If he posts bond, he is eligible for house arrest with a work release. A preliminary hearing has been set for Thursday in Portage County Municipal Court in Ravenna in front of Judge Melissa Robick. Well, friends, that concludes the reading of the Record Courier for Tuesday, January 5th, 2021. Thank you for inviting me into your home. Please stay safe until we're here together again. Be blessed and make it a great day.